I received a phone call from my doctor, just one call that shattered my 38-year happy marriage. The doctor whispered, "Your blood test results reveal something impossible to believe." I was stunned, almost paralyzed with shock. When I finally uncovered the truth, I realized my family saw me as nothing more than a powerless old man, easy to manipulate, easy to erase. But they miscalculated. They didn't know I would meticulously plan my revenge and remove them from my life, one calculated move at a time. I'm incredibly grateful you're here with me on this journey. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from right now? Drop a comment and let's connect. Quick note: this is a fictional story crafted for entertainment and reflection. While inspired by common life experiences, names, events, and details have been dramatized for storytelling impact. The lessons, however, remain deeply meaningful. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. In that particular way, hospital lights always do, sterile, clinical, utterly indifferent to the lives unraveling beneath them. I'd been coming to Legacy Emmanuel Medical Center for annual physicals for 20 years, ever since Dr. Harriman retired. At 63, I considered myself fortunate. No medications, except occasional aspirin, still active enough to oversee Thompson HVAC systems, still beating younger guys at golf most Saturdays. Dr. Patterson walked in, carrying a manila folder, setting it down carefully, deliberately, like a man handling evidence. Something about that gesture made my stomach tighten before he spoke. "David," he said, settling onto the rolling stool, "your blood work came back and there's something we need to discuss." I straightened. "What is it?" "Cholesterol finally catching up. Your levels are excellent across the board. Heart, liver, kidneys, all functioning beautifully." He paused. "But there's a discrepancy. According to this test, your blood type is AB negative." I blinked. "Okay, is that bad? But a B negative is rare, only 1% of the population. That's not the issue." Patterson pulled out an older sheet. "Every medical record we have for you, dating back to 1987, lists you as O positive. Blood types don't change, David. So either there's been a clerical error spanning 4 decades, or the original records were wrong." "So what does this have to do with anything?" "I feel fine." Patterson's expression shifted into what I recognized as his difficult conversation face. "David, I need to ask something personal. You have 2 children, Sarah and Michael, correct?" The shift threw me. "Yes. Sarah's 28, Michael's 25. Do you happen to know their blood types?" "Sarah's O positive. I remember because she donated blood in high school. Michael's O positive, too. He needed stitches after a skateboarding accident, and the ER nurse mentioned it matched mine." "Why?" Patterson leaned forward. "David, if you're AB negative, it's genetically impossible for you to have children with O positive blood. AB blood types result from inheriting an A allele from one parent and a B allele from the other. O positive requires 2 O alleles, one from each parent. An AB parent physically cannot pass on an O allele." The words made sense individually, but strung together. They formed a sentence my brain refused to process. I heard myself laugh, a sharp sound that didn't belong to me. No. There has to be a mistake. Labs screw up, right? That was my first thought too, which is why I want to run the test again, different lab, expedited processing. "But David," he hesitated, "you should prepare yourself for the possibility that the results will be the same." I drove home in a fog. The wipers scraped across my windshield in rhythmic intervals, oddly loud in the cab's silence. Cedar Hills looked exactly as it always did. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained craftsman homes. Our house sat at the end of Saltzman Road, bought in 1995, when Thompson HVAC finally turned profitable. Jennifer's silver Lexus sat in the driveway. Through the window, I could see her moving around the kitchen, probably starting dinner. 38 years of marriage meant I could read her routines like sheet music. I sat in my truck for 5 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel trying to figure out what I'd say. "Hey honey, funny thing at the doctor's. Turns out I might not be our kid's biological father." When I finally went inside, Jennifer looked up from chopping vegetables, smiled that warm smile that had first caught my attention at Portland State in 1985. "How was Dr. Patterson? Did he tell you to stop eating bacon? I see you, clean bill of health." I heard myself say the lie sliding out smoothly. "Everything's fine." "That's wonderful." She kissed my cheek, smelling of Chanel and something savory. "Sarah called. She and Marcus want to come for dinner Sunday." Sarah, our daughter. The little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose college tuition I'd paid in full. O-positive Sarah, who supposedly couldn't be mine. "Sure," I said. "That's fine." March 21st arrived after 6 days that felt like 6 years. I'd told Jennifer I had a follow-up appointment and drove back to Legacy Emmanuel with my stomach churning. Patterson didn't make me wait. He called me back personally, led me to his office instead of an exam room. A B negative, he confirmed, sliding the new report across his desk. Confirmed by Oregon Medical Laboratories, completely independent. "David, I need to show you something else." He pulled up my medical records, scrolling back to scanned documents from 1987. There it was, blood type O positive. "I requested your complete file from storage. Every single entry from 1987 onward lists you as O positive. Your insurance forms surgical consent for your appendectomy in 1993, even the donor card from 1989. Someone with access to medical records changed your blood type, David, and they did it comprehensively." My throat felt tight. "Who would do that?" Patterson's expression was carefully neutral. "Someone with medical access and knowledge of the system. A nurse, a records clerk, maybe a physician. Carol, Jennifer's younger sister, who'd worked as a nurse at Legacy Emmanuel throughout the 90s. Carol, who'd been present at both Sarah's and Michael's births, who'd helped us navigate the hospital systems. I need copies of everything." I said, my voice harder than intended. "All my records, current tests, and old files." Patterson nodded slowly. "I'll have them ready by end of business. David, I'm sorry. It means someone's been lying to me for 38 years, I said, standing. It means my entire life might be built on a foundation that never existed." That night, I stood in our bedroom, watching Jennifer sleep peacefully, her breathing deep and even. The same woman I'd met at a campus coffee shop 40 years ago, who'd laughed at my terrible jokes, who'd said yes to my proposal with a ring I'd saved 6 months to afford. I studied her face in the dim light, the fine lines around her eyes, the gray threading through her auburn hair. I'd memorized that face across 4 decades, through 2 children, through building a business and buying a home. And for the first time in 38 years, I looked at my wife and felt like I was looking at a complete stranger. The bedside clock glowed 2:47 a.m. My children, except the blood flowing through my veins, said otherwise. And blood, as Patterson had so clinically explained, doesn't lie. I went to bed next to a woman I'd loved for 38 years, and for the first time, I felt like I was sleeping next to a stranger. The decision to order the DNA kits came 3 days after Dr. Patterson's confirmation. During a lunch break, I spent locked in my office at Thompson HVAC Systems. I'd Googled paternity testing Portland on my phone, then immediately cleared my browser history, like a man with something to hide. Pacific Diagnostics Lab in Beaverton offered expedited processing 7 to 10 days instead of 3 weeks for $650. I paid with my personal credit card, the one Jennifer never looked at, and selected discreet packaging. The kits arrived March 26th in a plain cardboard box. Collecting the samples felt like a betrayal, even though I was potentially the one betrayed. Sunday dinner, March 27th. Sarah came over with Marcus, her husband of 2 years. They'd met at Legacy Emmanuel, where both worked. Sarah in pediatrics, Marcus in the same department. They were trying for a baby, Sarah mentioned over pot roast, and the way she looked at Jennifer when she said it made my chest physically hurt. After dinner, while Marcus and Jennifer cleaned up, I slipped into the guest bathroom where Sarah always left her purse. The hairbrush inside had several auburn strands, just like her mother's. I sealed them in the collection envelope with hands that didn't shake even though they probably should have. Michael's sample came the same night. My son, and how that word suddenly felt like a question mark, had stopped by to borrow my truck. His toothbrush sat in the guest bathroom cabinet left from his last overnight stay during a winter power outage. I bagged it in silence. I mailed both samples March 27th from the post office on Canyon Road. Results promised by April 5th or 6th. 10 days of waiting, of sitting across the dinner table from Jennifer, pretending everything was fine, of answering Sarah's texts about baby names and Michael's questions about expanding Thompson HVAC. By March 29th, sleep had become something that happened to other people. I'd been lying in bed since 11 p.m. listening to Jennifer's even breathing. At 1:47 a.m., I gave up and padded downstairs. The attic access was in the hallway outside our bedroom, a pull-down ladder we used maybe twice a year for Christmas decorations and old tax records. The attic smelled like dust and old insulation. Boxes lined the plywood flooring, Christmas ornaments, Michael baby clothes, Sarah school projects, each one labeled in Jennifer's precise handwriting. Our lives cataloged and stored. I found the file box marked Taxes 1995 to 2000, shoved behind National Geographic magazines. But as I pulled it forward, my hand knocked against something wedged behind the Christmas bins, a shoebox, plain brown, no label. I should have left it alone. I opened it. The letters inside were bound with a rubber band that crumbled when I touched it. The paper felt substantial, expensive stationery, and the handwriting was masculine, angular, precise, the writing of someone used to signing prescriptions and medical charts. The first letter was dated April 1996. Jay, I can't stop thinking about last night. Knowing David is at that HVAC convention in Seattle until Friday makes this both safer and more dangerous. I know we said we'd stop after the wedding, but I can't. Next month, when he's in Sacramento, my place, 7 p.m., my hands started shaking. I unfolded the second letter. September 1996. I can't wait to meet our daughter next month. Have you thought about what you'll tell David when you go into labor? I wish I could be there officially, not just as the attending physician who happened to be on call. I'll take care of everything at the hospital, the records, the birth certificate, all of it. No one will ever know. Our daughter, Sarah. Born October 15th, 1997. Letter after letter spanning years. Brief updates during my business trips. Passionate paragraphs about stolen afternoons. Then dated March 1999. Our son will be perfect, just like Sarah. I know you were worried after the amniocentesis, but the results were clear, healthy, strong. Another boy for me, even if David gets to think he's the father. Strange, isn't it? I'm helping him raise my own children. Carol has been invaluable with managing the medical records. Your sister is braver than both of us. Michael, born January 2000. Not my son. Brian's son. Brian Caldwell, my best friend since 1992. Brian, who'd been my best man at our 20th anniversary vow renewal. Brian, who'd delivered both of his children. A letter from 2010 made my stomach turn. Ran into David at Kells yesterday. He bought me a Guinness, went on about how Michael made honor roll, how Sarah got accepted into nursing school. We did something right, he said, clapping my shoulder. I nodded and smiled and felt like the worst bastard alive, but not bad enough to stop. The last letter was dated December 2015. Cha! We're getting older. Jay David's talking about retirement in a few years. I think about what happens when we're old. Will we finally tell them? Or do we take this to our graves? Sometimes I think the truth would destroy them more than the lie. Sometimes I think I'm just a coward. Probably both. I photographed every single letter with my phone, making sure the dates were visible, that every word was captured. Evidence. Not love letters, evidence of fraud, of conspiracy, of a betrayal so comprehensive it had its own filing system. I thought about Sarah's wedding 2 years ago, walking her down the aisle, how she'd whispered, "Thanks for being the best dad ever." I thought about teaching Michael to ride a bike, running behind him, until he found his balance, his face pure trust and joy. All of it, every treasured memory, now carried an asterisk. I sat on that dusty attic floor until sunrise, holding proof that my best friend had fathered my children, and my wife had lied for nearly 30 years. The security footage from the Heathman Hotel would eventually tell me everything I needed to know. Rick Sullivan, the private investigator I'd hire within days, had connections with hotel management. A former partner from his Portland police years worked their security detail. For $300 under the table, Rick obtained hallway recordings showing my wife, my best friend, and my 2 children entering room 517 at 7:31 p.m. on March 29th, just hours after I'd photographed those letters. I learned the details later, pieced together from Rick's surveillance and Jennifer's own testimony during divorce proceedings. She'd kept meticulous notes in her phone, timestamps, talking points, contingency plans. According to those notes, Jennifer called Brian first at 6:47 p.m. using a burner phone app. The message was simple. Emergency. Heathman room 517, 7:30. Bring Sarah and Michael. Room 517 cost $280 a night. Jennifer paid cash, another detail that would surface later. She'd been withdrawing $300 every other week from our joint account for 6 months, categorizing it as real estate marketing expenses. I'd signed off on every statement without looking twice. Brian arrived first at 7:24 p.m. Sarah and Michael showed up together at 7:29 p.m. That detail should have told me everything they'd coordinated. They'd planned their response, because I'd learn later that Sarah and Michael had known the truth since 2013. Since she was 16 and he was 13, they'd known Brian was their biological father. They'd known, and they'd looked me in the eye every Christmas, every birthday, every Father's Day, and called me Dad while cashing the checks I wrote for their education, their weddings, their lives. Rick's audio reconstruction, pulled from a parabolic microphone in the adjacent room during his follow-up investigation, captured most of the conversation. Jennifer spoke first. "David knows something. He's been acting strange since that doctor's appointment. Won't look me in the eye. Asked weird questions about the kids' medical histories." "What kind of questions?" Brian's voice cautious. "Size, blood types, genetic conditions. Whether there were any surprises during the pregnancies." A pause. "He went up to the attic this morning. I saw the access ladder down. Boxes were moved." Michael's voice cut through harder than Brian's. "So what? Even if he found something, he can't prove anything. We're his kids on paper. Birth certificates say David Morrison father. That's legal documentation. Michael's right. Sarah, my little girl. Any DNA test would need our consent. We're adults. We can refuse. And even if he somehow got samples, what's he going to do? Contest paternity of 2 grown children? No court will undo that." Listening to Rick's playback weeks later, I'd sit in his office and feel something calcify in my chest. He might try to cut us out of the will," Michael continued. "Or sell Thompson HVAC out of spite, liquidate everything before we can establish our claim." Your claim," Brian's voice sharpened. "Jesus, Michael, that's David we're talking about." "My David is exactly that. He's a business asset we've been managing for decades. And if he's about to become a liability, we need to secure our position now." I would replay that audio 17 times, listening to my son refer to me as a business asset that needed managing. Jennifer regained control. "Here's what we do. We maintain everything exactly as normal. Brian, keep your Thursday nights with David at Kells. Sarah, resume Sunday dinners. Be the loving daughter. And all of us, we prepare for the possibility that he knows. Michael, schedule a consultation with that elder law attorney. We need to understand our legal rights if he becomes incompetent to manage his affairs. Brian's sharp intake of breath. Jesus Christ, Jennifer. You're talking about declaring him mentally unfit. I'm talking about protecting our family. That company is our children's inheritance. If David's about to burn everything down because of some genetic technicality, then yes, we prepare our options. The meeting broke up at 8:43 p.m. 73 minutes to conspire against a man who was probably making backup copies of love letters proving his entire life was fiction. I didn't know any of this on April 1st when I called Brian and suggested our usual Thursday beers at Kells. All I knew was that I needed one more piece of the puzzle. DNA. Brian's DNA compared against Sarah's and Michael's would give me courtroom-ready proof. Kells Irish Restaurant sits at 112 Southwest 2nd Avenue in Old Town. Brian and I had been coming here since the early 90s. The staff knew us had our usual table near the window. I arrived first and ordered 2 pints. Brian walked in at 6:47 p.m. exactly on time. If he was nervous, he hit it well. But I'd spent 30 years reading people across negotiating tables. I knew how to spot a liar. Brian was working too hard at being casual. How's the clinic? I asked. Busy, spring births, delivered twins yesterday. He was good, using his work as camouflage. Jennifer said you had your physical. Brian continued. Everything, check out. There it was. The real question underneath the casual phrasing. I smiled. Clean bill of health. Doc said I'm healthier than guys half my age. Brian's shoulders dropped. Relief. He believed me. We talked basketball, his daughter's college acceptances, Thompson HVAC's expansion plans. Normal. Easy. At 8:15 p.m., Brian excused himself to the restroom. The moment he disappeared, I moved. The Ziploc bag was in my jacket pocket. I wrapped my handkerchief around Brian's pint glass, lifted it carefully, making sure I had good prints and saliva residue, slid it into the bag, sealed it. Brian's phone buzzed when he returned. I saw the name Jennifer M. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, just real estate thing. I knew exactly what it was. Oh, hey, I gotta run. Early meeting tomorrow in Seattle. 4 a.m. departure. Drive safe, man. Next week? Absolutely, I lied. I walked out at 8:19 p.m. Brian's DNA in my jacket pocket and drove directly to Pacific Diagnostics Lab in Beaverton. Their after-hours drop box sat in the parking lot. I'd called ahead, paid extra for chain of custody documentation and expedited processing. 3 comparisons: David Morrison versus Brian Caldwell. Sarah Morrison versus Brian Caldwell. Michael Morrison versus Brian Caldwell. Cost $850. Timeline 72 to 96 hours. I dropped the package through the slot at 9:03 p.m. Stood there in the empty parking lot and felt absolutely nothing. Not anger, not betrayal, not even sadness, just cold, methodical satisfaction. My hands were steady. Because somewhere between finding those letters and sitting across from Brian, pretending everything was fine, something fundamental had shifted. The David Morrison who believed in his family was gone. In his place sat someone colder, sharper. Someone who understood that trust was a weapon, and he'd been disarmed for 38 years. But not anymore. I was in my office at Thompson HVAC Systems reviewing a bid proposal when the call came through. The 503 area code. After 4 days of checking my phone every 30 minutes, I knew exactly who it was. Mr. Morrison, this is Claire from Pacific Diagnostics Lab. I'm calling with your test results. My hand found the office door, pushed it closed, turned the lock. Through the frosted glass, I could see my assistant Beth moving past with invoices. Normal. Everything out there was still normal. Go ahead, I said. Claire's voice carried that particular clinical neutrality medical professionals use when delivering bad news. We've completed the paternity analysis for all 3 comparisons. I'm emailing the full reports now, but I can summarize the findings. The email notification pinged. I pulled it up, Claire's voice continuing while my eyes found the bolded numbers. Comparison 1, David Morrison and Sarah Morrison. Probability of paternity 0.00%. The words were just sounds at first, even though I'd been expecting them. Comparison 2, David Morrison and Michael Morrison. Probability of paternity 0.00%. My hand holding the phone was steady. That surprised me. Comparison 3, Brian Caldwell and Sarah Morrison. Probability of paternity 99.97%. And Brian Caldwell and Michael Morrison. Probability of paternity 99.98%. Thank you, Claire. I read the report again, then a third time as if the numbers might rearrange themselves. They didn't. 38 years of marriage. 2 children I'd raised from birth, whose college tuitions I'd paid $135,000 between them. None of it mattered. The cold certainty of genetic science said I was nobody's father. I clicked print. 4 copies. 1 for personal records, 1 for my attorney, 1 for backup, 1 for... I didn't know yet. I scrolled to Tom's number. My older brother, 5 years my senior, who taught AP History at Gresham High School. We talked every Sunday. I'd never called him on a Thursday morning before. David. Tom answered on the second ring, voice already concerned. Everything okay? And can you come to my office now if possible? I'm on my lunch period. Give me 30 minutes. He made it in 25. Tom walked into my office at 2:14 p.m. and knew immediately that something catastrophic had happened. I laid out the folders, Dr. Patterson's blood type analysis, photocopies of Brian's letters, the DNA reports, evidence in a trial. Tom went through them methodically. When he finished, he set the DNA report down with exaggerated care. Brian Caldwell, my Brian, who delivered both my children, who's been my best man, my drinking buddy, my friend for 30 years. And Jennifer, for 38 years. 38 years. Tom stood paced to my window, overlooking the warehouse floor. When he turned back, his eyes were wet. What do you need? That question, simple, direct, no judgment, broke something in my chest that the DNA results hadn't touched. I need professionals, lawyer, private investigator. Tom pulled out his phone. Linda's sister went through a brutal divorce last year. I'll get the attorney's name. And I know a guy, his nephew's a PIX cop. Minutes later, Robert Griffin, Family Law Specialist Office downtown. Sharp doesn't bullshit. And the PI, Rick Sullivan. Retired Portland PD after 20 years. Expensive but thorough. I don't care about expensive. Tom met my eyes. This is going to cost you, David. Legally, financially, emotionally. You sure? They've been lying to me for 38 years. My wife, my best friend, and... My voice caught. And my kids have known. Sarah and Michael know Brian is their father, and they still let me pay for everything, still called me Dad. Then we burn it all down, Tom said quietly. Robert Griffin's office occupied the 3rd floor of a renovated Pearl District building. Griffin himself was 52 trim, wearing an expensive suit, but his handshake was firm, and when I laid out my evidence, he didn't flinch. How long have you known? He asked. 21 days since Dr. Patterson called. 4 hours since the DNA confirmation. Griffin made notes. You have grounds for fraud. Jennifer and Brian conspired to deceive you about paternity, with assistance from Jennifer's sister, who falsified medical records. That's potentially criminal. You have grounds for divorce, adultery, fraud, irreparable breakdown. So what about Sarah and Michael? More complicated. They're legal adults. You're their father of record, but at 28 and 25, there's no custody to dispute. If they've known and continued accepting financial support, he paused, that might constitute fraud as well. I want them out of my will. Easily done. I want Jennifer to get nothing in the divorce. Now, we'll try, but Oregon law entitles her to fair distribution. The fraud will help, but Thompson HVAC was built during the marriage. She has claims. Then I want documentation of everything. No, that's where a private investigator comes in. Rick Sullivan. Griffin nodded. Good choice. If there's evidence to find, he'll find it. Griffin's rate was $175 per hour with a $10,000 retainer. I wrote the check without blinking. Rick Sullivan's office sat above a PHO restaurant on Southeast Division Street. Rick was 48, built like someone who'd spent 20 years chasing suspects with the weathered face of a man who'd seen humanity at its worst. You want surveillance on all four of them? He asked. Yes. Cameras, GPS, tracking phone records, if we can get them legally. Bank accounts. Credit cards. 2 weeks of coverage on 4 subjects. $5,500 to $6,000. When can you start? Tomorrow morning. I provided the information, Jennifer's Lexus RX 350 Silver. Sarah's Honda CR-V still titled in my name from nursing school graduation. Another gift she'd accepted while knowing I wasn't really her father. What are we looking for specifically? Communications between the four of them. Meetings. Evidence they've been coordinating that they know about the paternity fraud. Anything showing conspiracy intent to deceive financial manipulation. I paused. And anything showing they're planning their next move. Because they are. Rick nodded. People who've been lying this long don't sit around waiting to get caught. They're already scheming. We shook hands. I wrote another check for $3,000 up front. As I left descending past the PIO restaurant's fragrant steam, I felt something shift. Not healing, but purpose, direction. By April 8th, I had an attorney, a private investigator, and a brother who'd promised to stand by me. I had DNA reports, 12 love letters, falsified medical records, and a rage so cold it felt like clarity. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was going to war. Rick's text came through at 4:47 p.m. while I was pretending to review quarterly tax documents. 3 days into surveillance, and my I had already caught them coordinating. Subject 4, Carol Brennan, 59. F. Met. Subject 1, Jennifer Morrison, 62. F. at Waterfront Park. April 8th, 2:15 to 3:40 p.m. Conversation appeared heated. Recommend immediate follow-up. Carol, Jennifer's older sister, the woman who'd worked labor and delivery at Legacy Emmanuel for 26 years. The woman who, according to Brian's letters, had been invaluable with managing the medical records. I called Rick back. Give me her address. He texted it 30 seconds later. A modest rambler in Milwaukee, 18 minutes from my office. I made it in 14. I knocked at 6:03 p.m. Carol opened the door wearing yoga pants and an oversized Thorns sweatshirt, reading glasses, pushed up on her graying blonde hair. Her face shifted from confused to worried. David is everything. We need to talk. I stepped past her into the entryway. Kitchen. I pulled the manila envelope from my jacket, set the DNA reports on her dining table, fanned them out like a dealer showing a royal flush. Carol went white. She gripped the back of a chair, knuckles blanching. Sit down, I said quietly. Because we're going to have a very honest conversation. She sat. I remained standing. I know you altered my medical records in 1987. I know you changed my blood type from AB negative to O positive. I know you helped Brian falsify birth certificates for Sarah and Michael. You have one chance to tell me everything. Carol's hands shook. How long have you known? Answer my questions, Carol. Don't ask your own. She nodded, defeated. Jennifer called me in 1996, panicking. Said she was pregnant and it wasn't yours, and if anyone checked blood types, they'd know. Asked me to change your records retroactively. Said it was the only way to protect the family. Then there was Michael. She nodded miserably. 1999. Jennifer called again. By then I was in too deep. If I confessed, I'd lose my license, maybe go to jail. Do Sarah and Michael know? I asked. Do they know Brian is their biological father? Carol's hesitation was answer enough. Carol. Do they know? Yes. Jennifer told them. Sarah was 16, Michael was 13. That was 2013. She made them promise not to tell you. My children had known for 12 years that I wasn't their biological father, and they'd looked me in the eye every Christmas, every Father's Day, and called me Dad while cashing the checks I wrote for their education, their weddings, their lives. I gathered the DNA reports. You're right. You are in too deep. But that's not my problem anymore. 3 days later, Rick called. Get to my office, now. I made it to Southeast Division Street in 20 minutes. Rick met me at the door with the grim expression of a homicide detective about to show crime scene photos. Your wife, your friend, and both your kids met at your Mount Hood cabin on April 10th. All 4 of them. I installed cameras on the access road audio equipment inside. You need to hear what they discussed. He played the audio. Jennifer's voice came through first, tinny but clear. Since March 15th, when he went to Patterson, he's been different, quiet, watching us. Could he know about the blood type? Brian, anxious. If he does, we need to move faster. Michael, cold and calculating. Move faster on what? Sarah, cautious. The nursing home plan. We've been planning for 8 months. Time to accelerate. Rick paused the playback. This is where it gets bad. Michael's voice explained with precision. I met with Patterson, the elder law attorney, in February. He confirmed that if we can get 3 doctors to sign off on cognitive decline, we can petition for conservatorship. Mom gets power of attorney, Dad goes into assisted living. We liquidate Thompson HVAC and split the assets before he has a chance to change his will. 3 doctors. Jennifer, considering. Brian's one. Who else? I've been documenting behavioral changes, forgetfulness, confusion, mood swings for 6 months. Sarah's voice. I can testify as a medical professional that I've observed these symptoms. And I've mentioned to colleagues at Legacy that I'm concerned about a family member showing signs of early dementia. Brian. If David ever gets evaluated, there's already a narrative in place. Rick stopped the audio. There's more. 2 hours of them planning how to commit you to memory care, how to forge medical documentation of cognitive decline. They have forged psychological evaluations, David. Fake medical reports. Michael's been building a paper trail for months. Rick pulled up scanned documents. Medical reports on Legacy Emmanuel letterhead, signed by doctors I'd never seen, describing me exhibiting progressive memory loss. Difficulty with executive function. Personality changes consistent with frontotemporal dementia. Dated from October 2024 through March 2025. Testimony statements from Sarah and Michael describing incidents that never happened. Me getting lost, driving home. Me forgetting conversations, me becoming aggressive. All of it fake. Designed to convince a judge I was incompetent, to strip away my autonomy, my freedom, my life. They're planning to lock you up, Rick said quietly. And steal everything you built. The paternity fraud I could almost understand. But this was active malice. Premeditated destruction. My children had decided the man who raised them was an obstacle to be eliminated. Copy everything, I said. Every frame of video, every second of audio, every forged document. Send it to Griffin, send me 3 backup copies. Already done. Good. because we're going to bury them." The tears came without warning. I'd walked out of Rick's office at 5:23 p.m., climbed into my truck, and driven downtown on autopilot. Found myself at Waterfront Park, parked near the Salmon Street Springs fountain with the engine running. April in Portland meant the park was busy with runners and cyclists. I watched a young father teaching his daughter to ride a bike along the esplanade, her training wheels wobbling, his hand steady on her back, her laughter carrying across the grass. That's when something in my chest finally cracked. I'd taught Sarah to ride a bike on these same paths when she was 6, summer of 2003. She'd fallen twice, scraped her knee, and I'd cleaned the blood while she cried into my shoulder. "It's okay, baby girl. Your dad's got you. I'll always have you." Except I wasn't her dad. Brian was. And Sarah had known for 12 years since before I paid for nursing school, since before I walked her down the aisle with tears in my eyes. She'd known. They'd both known. And they'd used that knowledge like a weapon. I sat on a bench facing the river and felt the first tear slide hot down my cheek. 38 years of never crying. Not when my father passed. Not when Thompson HVAC nearly went bankrupt. Not even when Dr. Patterson first told me about the blood type impossibility. But hearing Michael's voice on that recording, the boy I'd built a treehouse with, hearing him discuss liquidating my business and institutionalizing me like I was a problem to be solved instead of a human being who'd loved him unconditionally for 25 years, that broke me. I called Tom. Couldn't speak when he answered, just made some sound that wasn't quite words. "David!" His voice shifted to alarm. "Where are you?" "Waterfront Park. Can you—" I'm on my way." He made it from Gresham in 22 minutes. Sat down next to me and let me finish crying. Handed me a bandana when I finally stopped. "Rick showed you something bad," he said finally. "They want to have me declared mentally incompetent. Lock me in a nursing home. Steal everything. And the kids are leading it. They've known about Brian for 12 years, and they've been planning this for months. Forging medical records. Jesus Christ. I raised them. I was there for every skinned knee, every bad grade, every heartbreak. And they're going to lock me away like I'm garbage." Tom's jaw worked. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and absolutely certain. "They don't deserve your tears, brother. I stopped. Couldn't finish the sentence because they weren't. Listen to me." Tom turned to face me, tears in his own eyes now. "You are a good man who loved people who didn't deserve it. That doesn't make you weak. It makes them monsters. You gave them everything and they turned it into ammunition. That's not on you. That's on them. Promise me you won't forgive them easily." "I promise," I said and meant it. "Good. Because we're going to make them answer for every lie, every theft, every day they looked you in the eye and played you for a fool." We sat there until sunset, turning the river copper and gold. Watched the father and daughter pack up their bike, the little girl riding without training wheels, now confident and fearless. I used to be that person for Sarah and Michael. Now I was just the mark they'd been running a con on. Tom drove me back to Cedar Hills. I walked through my front door at 7:41 p.m. to find Jennifer in the kitchen, making Tuesday night tacos, the smell of cumin and garlic hanging in the air, like everything was normal. She looked up, smiled. "There you are, I was getting worried." I walked past her without a word, went straight to my study, locked the door. Heard her knock tentatively. Ignored it all. The war had officially begun. The next morning, April 13th at 7:08 a.m. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Morrison." A woman's voice, educated and controlled with an edge underneath. "My name is Diane Caldwell. I believe you know my husband, Brian. I think you and I need to talk." I set down my coffee mug carefully. "Mrs. Caldwell." "Diane, please. And I'm calling because I know. I've known about Brian and your wife for 5 years now. Found the evidence in 2020 emails, financial records. I hired my own investigator, built my own case, and now I think we should combine our efforts. Why now? Because my investigator informed me yesterday that you've hired Rick Sullivan. You're building a case. So am I. It's time we work together. 2 hours later, I sat across from Diane Caldwell in a small cafe on Northwest 23rd Avenue. She looked exactly like what she was, a doctor's wife of 35 years, well-maintained, understated jewelry, cold, calculating eyes. She slid a slim folder across the table. Bank statements showing transfers from Brian to Jennifer, $42,000 yearly for 15 years, totaling $625,000. Hotel receipts from the Heathman, dating back to 2018, always room 517. Photographs of Brian and Jennifer together, time-stamped and cataloged. I confronted Brian in 2020. He begged forgiveness, promised to end it. I told him to sign a post-nuptial agreement giving me $7.5 million if I could ever prove he'd cheated again. Diane's smile was sharp as broken glass. He signed in January 2021, and he kept cheating. So now that money is mine. Then what are you proposing? Coordinated attack. We confront them together, you and me, Brian and Jennifer, in the same room. We present our evidence simultaneously. We file for divorce on the same day in the same courthouse. We make it a public spectacle that ruins their reputations. I studied her face, found only the same cold rage I saw in my own mirror. You really want to burn it all down, I said. Don't you? I thought about Sarah's voice discussing my cognitive decline. Michael calculating Thompson HVAC's liquidation value. Jennifer and Brian, 38 years of lies. Yes, I said. I do. Diane extended her hand. I shook it. Then let's make them suffer, Mr. Morrison, she said quietly. They've earned it. They have, I agreed. I'd made the reservation that morning, requesting the private dining room adjacent to room 517, where Jennifer and Brian had spent countless afternoons. Rick Sullivan arrived at 4:30 to install recording equipment. Oregon's one-party consent law meant that as long as I knew about the recording, the audio would be admissible in court. You sure you want to do this? Rick asked. People get unpredictable when they're cornered. I'm counting on it, I said. Jennifer arrived at 6:03 p.m., wearing a navy dress I'd bought her for Christmas, hair styled the way I liked it. She looked nervous but hopeful. Probably thought I'd called this dinner to work on our marriage. David, she said, kissing my cheek. This is unexpected. Are we celebrating something? Sit down, Jennifer. We're waiting for one more person. It's one more who? The door opened. Brian Caldwell walked in, wearing his charcoal suit, confident smile already forming. I watched my wife's face drain of all color. David, your assistant said you wanted to discuss HVAC contracts at the hospital. He stopped when he saw Jennifer. Oh, I didn't realize. Sit down, Brian. Something in my tone made them both freeze. Jennifer gripped the table's edge, knuckles white. Brian's smile collapsed into something wary animal. I reached into my leather portfolio and began laying documents on the table. First, the DNA reports, David Morrison, 0.00%. Brian Caldwell, 99.97%. 99.98%. Then the letters, Brian's letters from our attic spanning 19 years. Then photographs from Diane's investigator, Brian and Jennifer, entering this hotel, sitting in his car, walking in Washington Park. This is what's going on, I said quietly. Brian opened his mouth, closed it. Those could be, this isn't what it looks. David, let me explain. I don't. I pulled out my phone, queued up the Mount Hood cabin recording. Let's start with this. I pressed play. Jennifer's voice filled the room. Since March 15th when he went to Patterson. He's been different. Brian, could he know about the blood type? Michael, time to accelerate the nursing home plan. Sarah. I can testify as a medical professional that I've observed these symptoms. I let it play for 2 minutes, then stopped it. 38 years. I said, voice steady and cold. 38 years, Jennifer. You let me believe Sarah and Michael were mine. You let me pay for their lives, raise them, love them. And not once did you tell me the truth. David, please. Jennifer reached toward me. I pulled back. Let me explain. When did they know Sarah and Michael? When did you tell them Brian was their father? Silence. Jennifer's eyes welled with tears. Jennifer, when? 2013, she whispered. Sarah was 16. Michael was 13. But I didn't deserve to know. You would have left. You would have taken everything. You would have lost your comfortable life. I finished. Brian's money. My money. The house. All of it built on my ignorance and their silence. Brian stood abruptly. I positioned myself between him and the door. Sit. I said, or I walk out this door, and my next phone call is to the Portland Police Fraud Division, followed by the Oregon Medical Board. You'll be explaining your falsified medical records and conspiracy to commit elder abuse to people with badges. Your choice. Brian sat. The nursing home plan, I said. Whose idea was that? Jennifer wiped her eyes, mascara smearing. Michael's. Last year. He was worried if you found out you might cut them off financially. He wanted to protect their inheritance by having me declared incompetent and institutionalized. It was never going to happen. It was just contingency planning. In case I discovered you'd been lying and wanted to leave my estate to someone who actually deserved it. Silence. The money. Brian, how much have you transferred to Jennifer over the years? I don't. $625,000. $42,000 a year for 15 years. How much of our life was built on your affair? The kitchen renovation, Sarah's wedding. The European vacation. Jennifer sobbed. I loved you, David. I do love you. This wasn't a mistake. I asked. Jennifer, you had 2 children with this man. You let him deliver his own kids while I held your hand and cried with gratitude. You coached our children to lie to me for 12 years. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. 38 years of choices. You were always working. The words burst out. Building your business, traveling for contracts. I was alone. Brian was there. He listened. So this is my fault, I said flatly. I worked too hard providing for our family. Therefore, you were justified in fucking my best friend and passing off his children as mine. Jennifer flinched. Good. And Carol, I said. How did you convince her to falsify my medical records? She volunteered, Brian said quietly, face gray. When Jennifer told her about the pregnancy in 1996, Carol said she'd fix it. Change your blood type so no one would question paternity. She was committing fraud, I corrected. But thank you for confirming that on tape. Brian's eyes widened. You're recording this. Oregon is a one-party consent state. I'm consenting. Everything you've both said is now documented evidence. Jennifer made a sound like a wounded animal. David, please. Our marriage we can work through. Well, it ended the moment you spread your legs for Brian in 1995. Everything since has been a lie I was living and a truth you were hiding. I stood, collected my documents. Divorce papers will be served tomorrow morning. Both of you. Diane Caldwell and I have been coordinating. We're filing simultaneously with matching allegations of fraud, adultery, and conspiracy. Jennifer, you'll get nothing beyond what Oregon law requires. Brian Diane's post-nuptial agreement guarantees her $7.5 million when she proves infidelity, which I tapped my phone, she now can. David, wait. Brian half rose. So, we're done. You destroyed 38 years of my life. Diane and I are going to make sure you lose everything you built on our backs. I walked to the door, paused, and looked back. Jennifer was crying into her hands. Brian stared at the table, blank with shock. I felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction. Just cold emptiness. Part 1 complete, I said and walked out. If you're still here with me, drop a comment and let me know you're still on this journey. And tell me honestly, if you discovered a betrayal this deep after 38 years, what would you do next? Would you walk away quietly or make them face the truth? And just a small note before the story continues. Some parts of what you're about to hear are slightly dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this kind of story isn't for you, feel free to stop here. But if you stay, the consequences are only beginning. I made the calls at 7:30 that morning before Jennifer could warn them. Sarah answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. And Dad, is everything okay? The word Dad hit like a fist to the sternum, but I kept my voice level. I need you and Michael at the house. 10 o'clock. It's urgent. What's wrong? Is Mom? 10 o'clock, Sarah, don't be late. I hung up, immediately dialed Michael. He answered with keyboard clicking in the background. David, kind of in the middle of something. Cedar Hills, 10 a.m., family emergency. Be there. Can this wait? No. I spent the next 2 hours setting up. Called Tom at 8, asked him to come over. My brother arrived at 9:15 with coffee and the same grim expression from Waterfront Park. He took one look at my face and nodded. The kids, he said, not a question. The kids. I pulled up Rick's surveillance footage on my laptop, connected it to the TV. Cued the Mount Hood recording to where Michael said, "Accelerate the nursing home plan." Placed my phone on the coffee table with the Heathman audio ready. Arranged the DNA reports and disinheritance documents in a folder. Tom watched me work, said nothing. Just radiated steady, protective presence. Sarah arrived first at 9:58 a.m., parking her Honda CR-V, still titled in my name, the graduation present I'd given her. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, wearing scrubs. For a moment, seeing her walk up, I felt that old protective instinct flare. Then I remembered the recording of her discussing my supposed cognitive decline, and the instinct died. Michael pulled up 3 minutes later, dressed in dark jeans and button-down, checking his phone, probably calculating how much work time this was costing him. I let them in, led them to the living room where Tom sat. Their expressions shifted from confusion to wariness when they saw their uncle, Uncle Tom. Sarah looked between us. "What's going on? Is Mom okay?" "Sit down," I said. "David, I've got a code review at 11. Michael started. "Sit down." I picked up the TV remote, pressed play without preamble. The screen filled with surveillance footage, our Mount Hood cabin, April 10th, 2:34 p.m. 4 people around the dining table. Jennifer, Brian, Sarah, Michael. Michael's voice clear and businesslike. "We've been planning for 8 months. Time to accelerate the nursing home plan. I met with Patterson, the elder law attorney. He confirmed that if we can get 3 doctors to sign off on cognitive decline, we can petition for conservatorship." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Michael went very still. I let it play. Watched them watch themselves conspiring. Watched Sarah's face as her own voice came through. So I can testify as a medical professional that I've observed these symptoms. That gives us credibility. I stopped the video. Silence filled the room. "Dad," Sarah's voice cracked. "Don't, not yet." I picked up my phone, played the second recording. Jennifer's voice from last night. 2013. Sarah was 16. Michael was 13. I thought they deserved to know the truth. My voice, but I didn't. I stopped it. Set my phone down. Looked at my children, at Brian's children. You've known for 12 years that Brian Caldwell is your biological father. 12 years. Sarah, you were 16, old enough to understand what truth and lies meant. Michael, you were 13, old enough to know right from wrong, that we were confused. Sarah started tears forming. Don't call me Dad. You lost that right. But you raised us. Sarah tried again, voice shaking. You're our father in every way that matters. What matters is that you knew. For 12 years you knew, and you looked me in the eye every Christmas, every Father's Day, and you lied. You let me pay for your nursing school $45,000. You let me walk you down the aisle while crying because I was so proud. $38,000 for that wedding. You cashed every check, called me Dad when it was convenient, and the entire time you were planning to lock me in a nursing home and steal my business. Yeah, we weren't actually going to do it. Michael spoke up, aggressive edge creeping in. It was just contingency planning. Not in case I found out and wanted to cut you off, so you forged medical documents. Built a fake case that I was losing my mind. That was your contingency plan. Legally, you're still our father, Michael said, jaw tight. On paper. You can't just... Tom stood up, didn't say anything. Just stood and positioned himself closer to me. Michael's mouth snapped shut. You're right. Legally, I'm your father. But as of 8 o'clock this morning, you're both out of my will. Everything I own, Thompson HVAC. This house, every dollar goes to Tom and to charity when I die. You get nothing. You can't do that, Michael said, bravado cracking. I can and I did. Sarah was crying now, shoulders shaking. Dad, please. We made a terrible mistake. I pulled out my phone, played a snippet. Sarah's voice. I've been documenting behavioral changes, forgetfulness, confusion, mood swings for the past 6 months. You weren't convinced I was declining. You were creating false evidence. You're a nurse, Sarah. You know what cognitive decline looks like. And you lied. That's not a mistake. That's 12 years of choices. I walked to the front door, opened it. Cool April air rushed in. Get out of my house, I said. Sarah stood first, moving like someone in shock, grabbing her purse with shaking hands. Michael followed, face hardening. You'll regret this, Michael said as he passed. When you're old and alone and you need family, you'll remember this moment. I already regret 38 years of loving people who saw me as an ATM. One more regret won't make a difference. Sarah paused at the door, turned back. I'm sorry. I know you don't believe me, but I am sorry. So am I said, and closed the door. Through the window, I watched them walk to their cars. Watched Sarah fumble with her keys, drop them. Watched Michael slam his car door. Watched them both sit for a long moment, Sarah crying, Michael staring straight ahead before finally backing out. 28 and 25 years. More than half my life spent raising them. And in 10 minutes, I'd ended it. I felt nothing, just cold emptiness. Tom's hand landed heavy on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I wasn't sure I believed him yet. April 16th arrived with Diane Caldwell keeping her promise. At 9:14 that morning, she walked into the Multnomah County Courthouse and filed for divorce from Brian Michael Caldwell, citing adultery, financial fraud, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Her petition wasn't polite, it was a declaration of war. 38 years of infidelity. $625,000 transferred to Jennifer under the guise of business loans. A recorded confession 60 minutes long obtained legally on April 14th at the Heathman Hotel. That recording became part of the public court file at 10:47 a.m. By noon, the story had spread across Portland. The Oregonian ran a headline, Prominent OBGYN accused of decades-long affair, paternity fraud. KGW-TV sent a crew to Brian's clinic. A reporter stood outside, summarizing the allegations: falsified birth certificates, altered medical records, 2 adult children fathered during a marriage to another man. Brian's face appeared on the evening news next to words like ethics investigation and potential criminal charges. I watched it from my living room. Tom sat beside me, silent. The news anchor's voice was neutral, professional. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger. Just strange, cold clarity. At 2:37 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown 503 number. Mr. Morrison, this is Peter Whitman, attorney for Dr. Brian Caldwell. I'm calling to discuss a possible settlement. My client is willing to negotiate terms that could resolve this matter quietly. No. Well, Mr. Morrison, I understand emotions are high, but if we could just... Tell your client I'm not interested in quiet. Tell him I'm interested in the truth. All of it. Public. Legal. Criminal if necessary. I ended the call. Tom looked at me. You sure? I'm sure. The next morning, April 17th, I walked into the Oregon Medical Board's office and filed a formal complaint against Brian Michael Caldwell, M.D., license number 12847. I brought copies of everything: the DNA reports, the love letters, Carol's recorded confession, the birth certificates listing me as father despite biological impossibility. The investigator, Dr. Ellen Reyes, took notes for 40 minutes. When I finished, she leaned back. Mr. Morrison, what you're describing constitutes multiple violations of medical ethics. If substantiated, Dr. Caldwell could face license suspension, revocation, and criminal referral. Good, I said. She studied me. This will become public. The board's investigation will be a matter of record. I know, and you're prepared for that. I've been living a lie for 38 years. I'm done hiding. April 18th. Jennifer moved out. I came home at 4 p.m. and found half the bedroom closet empty. Her toiletries gone, the Chanel No. 5 missing from the dresser. A note on the kitchen counter, handwritten on a Trader Joe's receipt. I'm staying with Carol. I'll send someone for the rest of my things next week. I'm sorry, David. I never wanted it to end like this. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Tom came over that evening and helped me change all the locks. We worked in silence, the April air cool and damp. When we finished, Tom handed me the new keys. She doesn't live here anymore, he said. I nodded. That same day, I learned that Brian's $3.2 million life insurance policy beneficiary, Jennifer Morrison, had been frozen pending the fraud investigation. Diane's attorney had filed a motion citing it as potential proceeds of a criminal conspiracy. Jennifer had been counting on that money. So had Brian. So had Sarah and Michael. Now it was untouchable. April 20th, 3:47 p.m. I was at Thompson HVAC reviewing payroll when Linda Parker, my bookkeeper, knocked. David, there's someone here to see you. Your daughter. I looked up. Linda's face was uncertain, sympathetic. Tell her I'm not available. She's crying, David. She says it's urgent. I walked to the front office and found Sarah sitting in the waiting area. Navy blue scrubs, face red and swollen. When she saw me, she stood. Dad, please, I just need 5 minutes. Don't call me that. David, please. I know you're angry, but if you'll just let me explain. Explain what, Sarah? Explain how you've known for 12 years that Brian is your biological father. Explain how you planned to have me declared incompetent so you could steal my business. She flinched. Tears ran down her cheeks. We were scared. Michael said if we didn't act, you'd disinherit us. So I gave you everything. $45,000 for your nursing degree. $38,000 for your wedding. I walked you down the aisle. I taught you to swim, and you repaid me by conspiring to lock me in a facility and liquidate my life's work. I didn't want to, Michael said. I don't care what Michael said. You made a choice. You chose money over honesty, and now you have to live with that. I turned and walked back to my office. Lock the front door behind her, I told Linda. That night, 8:47 p.m., Michael sent an email, subject line, legal clarification. I opened it. David, regardless of biology under Oregon law, I am your legal son. Sarah is your legal daughter. We have rights, inheritance rights, family rights. You can't just erase us because of DNA. My attorney says. I deleted it without reading the rest. 10 minutes later, Tom called. How are you holding up? I sat in the dark living room, the house silent. Outside, the streetlights glowed amber. Across the cul-de-sac, the Hendersons' sprinkler system turned on. I'm fine, I said. You're not fine. No, I'm not, but I will be. Tom was quiet. Then, what do you need? I thought about Sarah crying in the waiting room. I thought about Michael's email asserting legal parenthood. I thought about Jennifer's note. I never wanted it to end like this. They stole 28 and 25 years of my love, I said. I need them to understand. That's not something you get back. Tom didn't argue. I'm here. Whenever you need me. I know. I ended the call and sat in the dark, listening to the silence of a house that was finally mine. April 22nd. Griffin's office, Pearl District, 10th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River, the West Hills rising green and misty beyond. Tom sat beside me. Griffin, 52, gray suit, 30 years of family law experience, opened a blue folder and slid a single-page summary across the table. This is the roadmap, he said. 5 actions. We execute all of them simultaneously. Maximum legal and financial pressure. I picked up the sheet, typed, numbered, clinical. First divorce from Jennifer Morrison on grounds of fraud, adultery, and conspiracy. I'd seek only 10% of marital assets, approximately $145,000. She'd forfeit all claims to Thompson HVAC, the house retirement accounts, and life insurance. Second, a civil suit against both Jennifer and Brian for $2 million in damages, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, conspiracy, and unjust enrichment from those $625,000 in transfers. Third, complete estate revision. Remove Sarah and Michael as beneficiaries. Tom would become primary beneficiary with $50,000 each, going to the American Cancer Society and Dornbecker Children's Hospital. No provision for Jennifer, Sarah, Michael, or any biological descendants. Fourth, asset protection. Transfer Thompson HVAC into an irrevocable trust with Tom as successor trustee. The trust couldn't be contested, dissolved, or accessed by any claimants. Fifth, file an IRS report on $625,000 in unreported transfers from Brian to Jennifer as potential taxable income. The investigation could result in penalties, interest, or criminal referral for tax evasion. I read it twice. Tom leaned forward, reading over my shoulder. Griffin waited. How long? I asked. Divorce filing today. Civil suit by end of week. Will revision 48 hours. Trust transfer 2 weeks. IRS report I can file this afternoon. Cost. Total estimated budget $120,000 assuming settlement. If we go to trial, double that. I didn't hesitate. Do it. All of it. Griffin made a note. One more thing, once we file the IRS report, that's a federal investigation. You can't pull it back. Jennifer and Brian could face criminal charges. Good. Tom looked at me. I met his eyes. He nodded once. April 23rd. Jennifer called at 11:47 a.m. I declined the call. She left a voicemail. I deleted it without listening. At 2:14 p.m., Michael called my office. Linda put him on hold, then appeared in my doorway. It's Michael. He says it's urgent. Tell him I'm unavailable, permanently. 5 minutes later, an email arrived. Subject line, legal notice. David, you can't do this. Sarah and I are your legal children under Oregon law. You can't just cut us out of your will because of DNA. We have rights. My attorney says we can contest any changes. We'll fight this in court if we have to. You need to stop this vendetta and think about what you're doing to this family. Michael. I forwarded it to Griffin with one line, cease and desist. His reply came at 4:32 p.m. already drafted. Sending certified mail today. If he contacts you again, we file for harassment. April 25th. Peter Whitman, Brian's attorney, called at 9 a.m. Mr. Morrison, I'd like to discuss a possible resolution. Dr. Caldwell is willing to surrender his medical license voluntarily, effective immediately. He'll also transfer $400,000 to you as compensation. In return, you withdraw your complaint to the Oregon Medical Board and agree not to pursue criminal charges. $400,000. More than I'd spent on Sarah's education. Michael's college, the wedding, all of it. I'll think about it, I said. We'd need an answer by Monday. You'll have one. That night, Tom came over. We sat on the back deck, cedar boards, string lights, the smell of pine and damp earth. Tom drank a beer. I drank water. How far are you willing to go? Tom asked. What do you mean? Brian's offering you money. A surrender. If you take it, this ends. If you don't... He looked at the dark trees. You keep pushing, someone's going to break. He already broke. 38 years ago, when he decided to sleep with my wife and lie about it. You know what I mean. I did. As far as it takes, I said. Tom nodded slowly. Okay. April 27th, 3:12 a.m. My phone rang. Diane Caldwell's name on the screen. Diane. Her voice was shaking. David. Brian tried to end his life. I found him at 2:30. Empty bottles, benzodiazepines, alcohol. He was unconscious. I called 911. They took him to OHSU. He's stable now, but there was a note. He mentioned you. He said he couldn't take your hatred anymore. I sat up in the dark bedroom. Is he going to be okay? Physically, yes. They're keeping him on a 72-hour psychiatric hold. I closed my eyes. Thank you for telling me. David, I have to go. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the dark window. Then I called Tom. He answered on the second ring. David. What's wrong? Brian tried to take his own life. Silence. Then Jesus. He's alive. OHSU. Psychiatric hold. Do you feel responsible? It was the question I'd been asking myself. No, I said. He had 38 years to tell the truth. He chose lies. He chose this. Then why are you calling me at 4 a.m? I didn't have an answer. Tom's voice softened. I'm coming over. He arrived 20 minutes later. We sat in the living room, lights off, just the blue glow of the street lamp filtering through. Tom didn't say much. He just sat there, solid and present. April 28th. Rick's surveillance confirmed that Sarah and Michael visited Brian at OHSU third-floor psychiatric wing at 11 a.m. They stayed 40 minutes. Jennifer did not visit. Diane had filed a restraining order. I did not visit. Griffin called that afternoon. David, the suicide attempt complicates things. If this goes to trial, a jury might see Brian as sympathetic. It could affect damages. I don't care about sympathy, I said. I care about the truth being on record. Understood. That night, I stood in the kitchen looking out at the backyard. The string lights were still on. The grass needed mowing. The garden Jennifer had planted was overgrown. Brian had survived. Part of me, the part that remembered 30 years of friendship, the part that had trusted him, felt relieved. But the other part, the part that knew he had fathered my children and lied about it for decades, The part that had listened to recordings of their conspiracy. The part that had received Diane's call at 3 a.m. That part felt nothing at all. If you're still here with me, leave a comment so I know you're still on this journey. And tell me, what would you choose in this situation? Comment 1 if you believe he should still face justice. Comment 2 if you think what happened is already punishment enough. And just a quick note. Some parts of the next section are slightly dramatized for storytelling. If you'd rather stop here, that's completely okay. But if you stay, the story continues. May 1st. Griffin called at 8:37 a.m. Jennifer's attorney wants an emergency meeting. She's broke. We met at Griffin's office at 10. Margaret Hollis, 47, silver-streaked hair navy suit, sat across from us. She slid a single sheet across the table. My client's financial statement. As of this morning. Griffin passed it to me. Jennifer had $12,400 in checking. 0 savings, 0 retirement. Current residence, her sister Carol's home in Milwaukee. Monthly expenses, $2,100. Outstanding debt, $18,700. Where did it go, I asked. Home renovations, approximately $180,000. Vacations, Europe twice, Hawaii 3 times, roughly $150,000 over 20 years. Your daughter's wedding, $38,000. Your son's BMW, $35,000 as a Christmas gift. Mrs. Morrison lived beyond her means, relying on Dr. Caldwell's supplemental income. Supplemental fraud, Griffin said quietly. Hollis didn't argue. My client is requesting a settlement. She waives all claims to spousal support. She accepts 15% of the marital estate, approximately $220,000, and agrees not to contest asset division. In exchange, Mr. Morrison withdraws the civil fraud suit. Griffin looked at me. I leaned back. No. 10%. $145,000. She signs a sworn affidavit admitting to the 38-year affair, the paternity fraud, and the conspiracy. She waives all claims to Sarah and Michael, and she agrees to a lifetime no-contact order. Ever. Hollis's expression hardened. That's punitive. That's fair. She lied for 38 years. She helped Brian falsify birth certificates. She told our children I wasn't their father and kept it secret for 12 years. She conspired to have me declared incompetent and locked in a nursing home. 10% and a confession, or we go to trial, and she gets nothing. I'll discuss it with my client, Hollis said. They reached an agreement on May 3rd. Jennifer signed the affidavit at a notary's office. I didn't attend. I received a scanned copy at 4:15 p.m. I, Jennifer Ann Morrison, do hereby swear, under penalty of perjury, that I engaged in a continuous extramarital affair with Brian Michael Caldwell from approximately 1987 to 2025. I further admit that Brian Caldwell is the biological father of Sarah Elizabeth Morrison, born 1997, and Michael James Morrison, born 2000, and that I knowingly allowed David Edward Morrison to believe he was their father for 28 and 25 years. I participated in the falsification of medical records and engaged in a conspiracy to deprive Mr. Morrison of his legal and financial autonomy. I accept full responsibility for my actions. I saved the PDF, closed my laptop, felt nothing. The same day I made 3 calls. First, to Verizon. I need to remove 2 lines from my family plan. Sarah's and Michael's numbers lines I'd been paying for since 2012 and 2015. The lines would be disconnected at midnight. Second, to Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'm removing 2 dependents from my health insurance, Sarah and Michael. $650 a month combined. Coverage would end May 31st. Third, to Michael's cell. Voicemail. Michael, this is David. The BMW you're driving is titled in my name. I purchased it for $35,000 as a gift, but legally it's my property. Return it to my address by 6 p.m. tomorrow, or I'll report it stolen. Michael didn't return the car. At 6:43 p.m. on May 2nd, he texted, "You can't do this. That car was a gift. I'll sue you for harassment." I forwarded the text to Griffin. At 7:05, I walked into Portland Police Bureau East Precinct and filed a stolen vehicle report. The officer took my statement, reviewed the title documents, and issued a report. "We'll enter it into the system. If the vehicle is stopped, the driver will be detained. Thank you." May 10th, 7:18 p.m. I was reviewing a proposal when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Mr. Morrison. This is Marcus, Sarah's husband." I straightened. Marcus, 30 years old pediatric nurse, married Sarah in June 2023. I'd walked her down the aisle. I'd paid for the rehearsal dinner $4,000. "What do you want, Marcus?" His voice was careful, respectful. "I know you don't owe me anything, sir. I'm not calling to defend Sarah. I just thought you should know some things. I didn't know about the conspiracy until April. Sarah told me after you confronted her. I was furious. We've been in therapy twice a week since. I told Sarah she was a coward. She made her own choices. Then why are you calling?" He hesitated. "Because Sarah is 8 weeks pregnant. Due date in December. She wants you to be a grandfather. But she's too afraid to ask." I closed my eyes. "She cries every night. She says she ruined everything. She knows what she did was unforgivable. Then why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm not asking you to forgive her. I'm just asking, if she truly changes, if she proves her remorse over time, would you ever consider letting her back into your life? Not now. Not soon. But someday." I sat in the silence. The house was quiet. Outside, streetlights glowed amber. I don't know, Marcus. The woman I thought was my daughter wouldn't have done this. I don't know who Sarah really is anymore. I understand. For what it's worth, I've asked her to write you a full apology letter. No excuses, just the truth and acknowledgement of what she did." "And Michael," Marcus exhaled. "I don't know about Michael. Sarah says he's not doing well. He quit his job at Nike in late April. He's not answering her calls. I think he's alone right now. That's his choice." "Yes, sir, it is." Silence. "Thank you for telling me about the baby. I don't know what I'll do with that information. But thank you. Take care, Mr. Morrison." The call ended. I sat in the office, Michael's old bedroom walls still painted pale blue, and thought about a grandchild I might never meet. If Sarah proved herself, if she truly changed, if she wrote that letter with real remorse, real accountability, maybe. But I wasn't ready to decide. Not yet. May 15th. Tom called at 6:43 p.m. while I was finishing paperwork. "You hear about Michael?" he asked. "No." "Kevin says he quit Nike." Kevin, Tom's oldest son, 29, worked in Portland's tech scene. Kevin and Michael had crossed paths professionally over the years. When, May 12th, told his manager it was personal reasons. Kevin says Michael's reputation in the industry is shot. "The story got out, your story. Not the details, but enough. People know there was a family conspiracy, fraud, elder abuse. No one's saying it publicly, but it's all over the grapevine." I leaned back in my chair. "Where is he now?" "Moved out of his Pearl District apartment. Kevin thinks he's in Southeast somewhere near Reed College. Cheaper rent. He unfriended everyone on social media, just disappeared." He's been calling me," Tom added. 3 times since the 13th. Wants to talk to Uncle Tom about Dad. I told him no. I'm not playing middleman unless you ask me to." "Thank you." David, the kid's falling apart. He made his choice. Tom was quiet. Then, yeah, he did. May 14th. Rick Sullivan's final surveillance report arrived. I scrolled through the summary. Michael had been observed alone at coffee shops, disheveled and unshaven. He'd moved to a cheaper apartment near Reed College for $1,200 a month. He'd purchased groceries at Trader Joe's, visited Powell's Books, but had no observed employment activity. No contact with Jennifer or Brian. Sarah had been instructed to maintain distance from him. Marcus blamed Michael for encouraging Sarah's worst instincts. Assessment subject is socially isolated. Financial situation likely deteriorating. Emotional state appears unstable. I closed the report. Felt nothing. May 15th, 10:24 p.m. A text arrived from Michael's number. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know I've realized what I did. I was greedy, stupid, and cruel. I'm sorry. I read it twice. Set the phone down. Stood at the sink, looking out at the dark backyard. I didn't reply. The next morning, Tom came over. Found me at the kitchen table with coffee and the Sunday Oregonian. You get Michael's text. Yeah. You respond. No. Tom poured himself coffee, sat across from me. Do you think he's sincere or just scared because his life's falling apart? I don't know, and I don't care enough to find out. Tom nodded slowly. Fair enough. May 18th. Sarah called Tom crying, desperate, begging him to convince me to meet her. Tom told her he'd pass the message along but wasn't making promises. May 19th. Michael sent Tom an email, 6 paragraphs. Tom forwarded it to me with no comment. Michael wrote that he'd started therapy with Dr. Alan Briggs twice a week. He'd joined a support group for adult children of dysfunctional families. He was learning things about himself he should have learned years ago. He admitted he was manipulated by his mother and Brian, but he'd also made his own choices. He chose greed. He chose to see me as an obstacle instead of the man who raised him. He was cruel. He was a coward. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He didn't deserve it. But he needed me to know he finally understood what he'd done. If there was any way I'd be willing to talk, even once he'd do whatever I asked. Sign legal documents, waiving inheritance claims, write a full confession, anything. I read it once. Closed the email. Tom called 10 minutes later. Did you read it? Yeah. What do you think? I think he's desperate. That doesn't mean he's lying. It doesn't mean he's telling the truth either. Tom sighed. No, it doesn't. May 20th. Dinner at Tom's house in Gresham. His wife Linda made pot roast. After dinner, Tom and I sat on the back porch. The evening air was cool, the sky streaked with pink and orange. Tom handed me a beer. I set it on the rail unopened. Sarah and Michael both reached out to me, Tom said. They're begging for a chance to talk to you. I don't want to see them. I know, but hear me out. I'm not saying you have to forgive them, but what if years from now you regret not giving them a chance to apologize face to face? What if you wonder whether they were sincere, and you never gave yourself the opportunity to find out? I looked at him. You think I should meet them? I think you should let them prove themselves first. Let them write full apology letters. Not texts, not emails, real letters. Detailed. What they did. Why it was wrong. What they're doing to change. If the letters are garbage, you throw them away. If they're sincere, then you can decide whether to meet them. On your terms, your timeline. I thought about it. The beer sat unopened. The sky darkened to purple. How long? 2 weeks, June 1st. That gives them time to think, to write something real. And if I read the letters and still don't want to see them, then you don't. But at least you'll know you gave them a chance to be honest. I thought about Sarah, 8 weeks pregnant. I thought about Michael alone in a cheap apartment, unemployed, texting apologies at 10 p.m. All right, I said. Tell them they can write letters. Minimum 2 pages. No excuses, no blame shifting, full accountability. Deadline June 1st. I'll read them. That's all I'm promising. Tom nodded. That's fair. He called Sarah that night. Then Michael. Tom told me later they both cried. Both said they'd write the letters. Both said thank you. May 21st. I sat in my office and thought about what I'd agreed to. 2 letters, 2 weeks. Tom came by the next morning with coffee from Stumptown. We sat on the front porch. Even if I read their letters, I said, I'm not promising anything. I know. I might read them and decide I never want to see them again. That's your right. But they need to earn even the possibility of my forgiveness. Tom looked at me with that steady expression I'd known for 58 years. That's exactly right. They need to earn it. And maybe they will. Or maybe they won't. But at least you'll know. I nodded. That sounded fair. June 1st, 9:37 a.m. Tom knocked on the front door. I opened it, found him holding 2 envelopes, one cream-colored, one white. They both sent them, he said. Sarah's is handwritten, Michael's is typed. He handed them to me, my name written in Sarah's looping cursive on the first, a printed label on the second. You want me to stay? Tom asked. No, I'll call you later. He nodded, squeezed my shoulder once, and walked back to his truck. I closed the door, carried the letters upstairs to my office, the room that used to be Michael's, the walls still pale blue. I sat down at the desk, set both envelopes down, stared at them. Outside, the morning sun filtered through the oak tree, casting dappled shadows. The house was silent except for the refrigerator's hum and the wall clock's faint ticking. I opened Sarah's letter first. 3 pages, cream stationery, blue ink, dated May 30th, 2025. Sarah wrote that she almost addressed me as David because she didn't know if she had the right to call me Dad anymore. She found out in 2013 when she was 16. Her mother sat her down and told her Brian Caldwell was her biological father, that I didn't know that telling me would destroy the family. She was confused, angry, but chose silence. She told herself she was keeping the peace, that it didn't matter because I loved her and she loved me, that biology was just biology. But that was a lie. It did matter. She knew it mattered. She just didn't want to face it. She rationalized it for years, told herself I'd never know, so it wouldn't hurt me. She was protecting herself from my anger, from consequences, from admitting her whole life was built on a lie. The nursing home plan was monstrous. She knew that now. At the time, her mother convinced her that my business was too stressful, that putting me somewhere safe was compassionate. She saw now that was manipulation. But she also chose it. She agreed because she wanted the money security for her future with Marcus. She was selfish. She was a coward. She didn't deserve to be my daughter. But if I ever met her child, my grandchild, biologically or not, she wanted them to know their grandfather was a man of integrity. She'd been in therapy twice a week since May. This pregnancy forced her to think about what it means to be a parent and how badly she failed the father she had. She was learning to be honest with Marcus. It was hard. She'd spent so many years hiding, lying, pretending. But he was teaching her that love requires truth even when painful. She didn't expect forgiveness, but she was working to become someone worthy of it even if she never received it. Because I deserved better. I deserved a daughter who told the truth. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. Sarah. I set the letter down. My hands were steady. My chest felt tight. I opened Michael's letter. 2.5 pages, white printer paper typed, dated May 31st, 2025. Michael wrote that he didn't know if he should call me Dad. He didn't think he'd earned that right. But I was his father in every way that mattered until he decided I wasn't. He found out when he was 13. His mother told him the same way she told Sarah. He was angry, not at her, at me. He convinced himself I wasn't really his dad. That Brian was, that everything I'd done didn't count because we didn't share DNA. That was stupid. The logic of a hurt, confused kid. But he never let go of it. He carried that anger into adulthood. He became greedy, entitled. He looked at my business, my money, my success, and told himself I owed him. The nursing home plan was his idea. February 2024. He researched it, found the legal loopholes, consulted an elder law attorney, pitched it to his mother and Sarah. He made it sound reasonable, compassionate. But it wasn't. It was theft. It was cruelty. He looked at me like a wallet, not a father. That disgusted him now. He couldn't undo what he did, couldn't give back 25 years of love and trust he threw away. But he'd spend the rest of his life trying to become the man I believed he was. He quit drinking. He'd been using alcohol to cope since 2022. He joined a 12-step program in May. 43 days sober, meetings 4 times a week. He was learning to sit with discomfort instead of numbing it. He was doing freelance work now. He left Nike because he couldn't face people there they knew what he'd done. The pay was lower, but the work was honest. He was planning to legally change his last name, not to Caldwell, never to Caldwell. He wanted to keep Morrison. To honor the man who raised him, coached his baseball team, taught him to drive, paid for his college, believed he was worth investing in, even though he didn't deserve it. He knew words were easy apologies, cheap. But he needed me to know he understood what he did, understood the harm, understood he may never be forgiven. And he accepted that. If you ever give me the chance to prove I've changed, I will. If you don't, I understand that too. Michael, I set the letter down beside Sarah's. The office was quiet. The sunlight had shifted, pooling on the corner of the desk. I read both letters again. Slowly. They weren't terrible. They weren't garbage. They showed remorse, accountability, details about therapy, sobriety change. But words were easy. I picked up my phone and called Tom. "Did you read them?" he asked. "Yeah. And they're not terrible." Sarah admits she knew since 2013. Michael admits the nursing home plan was his idea. They both say they're in therapy, trying to change. Do you believe them? I leaned back, looked out the window at the oak tree, the quiet street beyond. I don't know. Words are easy, Tom. I need to see action. I need time to see if they follow through. That's fair, so will you meet them? I thought about it. Sarah, 8 weeks pregnant, maybe 10 by now. Michael, 43 days sober, freelancing, trying to rebuild. Maybe, I said, but not yet. Tom didn't push. Okay. I'll tell them you read the letters. I'll tell them you need time. Thanks. David. Yeah, for what it's worth, they tried. The letters weren't perfect, but they tried. I know. I ended the call, set the phone down, looked at the 2 letters side by side, cream and white cursive, and typed Sarah and Michael. The children who weren't mine. The children who'd been mine for 28 and 25 years. I didn't know if I could forgive them. I didn't know if I wanted to. But I knew I'd read their letters. And that was something. Maybe someday it would be enough. September 14th, 2:53 p.m. I pulled into the driveway of Tom's house in Gresham, the same split-level ranch he and Linda had bought in 1994, the yard still thick with Douglas firs. Tom opened the door before I knocked. You ready? He asked. No. That's fair. He stepped aside. They're not here yet. You want coffee? Water's fine. I followed him into the living room. Familiar space cream walls, family photos on the mantel, the same navy couch. I sat in the armchair by the window. Tom handed me water and sat on the couch. Sarah's bringing Marcus, Tom said. Michael's coming alone. I nodded. At 3:04, a Honda CR-V pulled into the driveway. Sarah stepped out first, 28 years old, 6 months pregnant, the curve of her belly visible beneath a loose gray sweater. Marcus got out, walked around, touched her elbow gently. Tom let them in. Sarah looked at me, her face pale, uncertain. Hi, she said quietly. Sarah. Mr. Morrison, Marcus said, respectful, wary. They sat on the couch across from me. Sarah folded her hands in her lap. Marcus sat close, protective. 5 minutes later, a Mazda parked behind the Honda. Michael got out, 25 years old, thinner than I remembered, hair longer, wearing flannel and jeans. He walked up, slowly knocked once. Tom opened the door. Michael stepped inside, saw me, stopped. "David," he said. "Michael." He sat beside Sarah and Marcus. The five of us sat in a rough circle. The air was thick, tense. I spoke first. "I'm here because Tom convinced me to give you a chance. I'm not promising forgiveness. I'm not promising reconciliation or a relationship. I'm here to listen. That's all." Sarah nodded, eyes already red. Michael looked down at his hands. "Who wants to go first?" Tom asked. "And I will," Sarah said. She spoke for maybe 10 minutes. Her voice was steady, careful, like she'd thought hard about every word. "I've been in therapy twice a week since May. Dr. Ellen Reyes. We talk about why I stayed silent, why I let fear control me, why I chose comfort over honesty. Marcus set boundaries with me, hard ones. I wasn't allowed to contact you or Mom or Michael for months. Not until I proved I was serious about changing. Marcus's expression was unreadable, supportive but firm. This pregnancy." Sarah's voice wavered. She pressed a hand to her belly. "It's made me realize what parenting actually means, what it costs, and how badly I failed the father I had." She looked at me, eyes wet, but she didn't look away. "I've been honest with Marcus about everything. The lies, the conspiracy, the years I spent pretending. I'm rebuilding trust with him before I even think about rebuilding trust with you. Because I don't deserve your trust yet. Maybe I never will." She paused. "I've been volunteering at a domestic violence shelter since June. Bradley Angle in Portland. 20 hours a month. I work with women who've been betrayed by partners, by family. I listen to their stories. I see the damage. And I'm trying to understand the harm I caused you." She stopped. "That's all I wanted to say." I nodded, didn't speak. Michael went next. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands clasped. He looked older, worn, like someone who'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. "I've been sober since May 8th. 4 months, 6 days. I go to AA meetings 5 times a week. I have a sponsor, Jim, 12 years sober. I call him when I feel like drinking, when I feel like giving up." He glanced at Sarah, then back at me. "I'm still doing freelance work. $3,200 a month. I'm saving $800 of that. I don't know what for yet. Maybe just to prove to myself I can." He exhaled slowly. "See, I filed paperwork on September 1st to legally change my name. Not my first name, just to make sure I keep Morrison. Court date's October 15th. I want to keep it to honor the man who raised me, even though I didn't deserve it." His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. "I'm seeing a therapist, Dr. Alan Briggs. He specializes in shame and accountability. He's helping me understand why I convinced myself you owed me something, why I felt entitled to your money, your business, your life. He's helping me sit with the fact that I was cruel, that I looked at you like a wallet instead of a father." He stopped, looked at me directly. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for money or reconciliation or anything. I just want you to know I'm trying. Not because I expect anything from you, but because you deserve to know that I finally understand what I did." The room was quiet. I looked at Sarah, at Michael, at Tom sitting beside me, at Marcus, whose hand rested lightly on Sarah's knee. "I appreciate the effort," I said finally. "Both of you. I read your letters. I heard what you just said. And I believe you're trying." Sarah's face brightened slightly. Michael exhaled, relief flickering. "But," I continued, "trust isn't rebuilt in 4 months, or 6, or even a year. If you're serious about changing, prove it over time. Keep going to therapy, stay sober, keep volunteering. Show me through your actions, not your words, that you understand what you did, and that you're committed to being different." They both nodded. Sarah hesitated. "If the baby comes, if I have a daughter or a son in December, would you ever want to meet them?" I looked at her belly. at the curve of new life, at the fear and hope in her eyes. "Ask me again in 6 months," I said. Her face fell slightly, but she nodded. "Okay." Michael stood first. "Thank you for seeing us." Sarah stood too slowly, one hand supporting her back. "Thank you, Dad." I didn't correct her. I just nodded. Marcus shook my hand, brief, firm. "Thank you, Mr. Morrison." They left. The Honda pulled out first, then the Mazda. Tom and I sat in the living room. The house was quiet again. "How do you feel?" Tom asked. I thought about Sarah's therapy, her volunteer work, the way her voice cracked. About Michael's sobriety, his legal name changed the weight in his eyes. Like I'm watching strangers trying to become the people I thought they were. I said, "I don't know if that's possible. But maybe I'm willing to see." Tom smiled faintly. "That's something." "Yeah," I said, "it is." I drove home through the late afternoon light, past suburbs and strip malls and winding roads back to Cedar Hills. The house was empty, too big, too quiet, same as always. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. I felt cautious, uncertain, maybe a little bit hopeful. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. October 15th. An email from Sarah arrived at 7:42 a.m. Subject line, Update October. I opened it over coffee at the kitchen table. The morning light filtered through the window, pale and cool. Sarah wrote that she was still in therapy twice a week, with Dr. Reyes working on honesty boundaries, understanding why she stayed silent. It was hard. Some days she wanted to quit, but Marcus reminded her that the hard things were worth doing. The nursery was ready, pale yellow crib assembled. They were taking parenting classes at Legacy Emmanuel 6 weeks every Thursday night. She was learning to be honest with Marcus about everything, not just the big things, the small things too. It was harder than she thought. But he was patient. Baby was healthy. 32 weeks. Doctor said everything looked good. She'd been promoted to peer counseling coordinator at Bradley Angle in October, working with women who'd been through betrayal. It taught her more about what she'd done to me than anything else. "You don't have to reply. I just want you to know. Sarah." I read it twice, set my phone down, stared out the window at the oak tree, the leaves turning gold and rust. I didn't reply. November 3rd. An email from Michael. Subject line, 90 days. Michael wrote that today marked 90 days sober. He got his chip at the Alano Club. Jim, his sponsor, said the first 90 days were the hardest, but they were the foundation. Everything else builds on this. He was still doing freelance work. Small projects, website updates, app, troubleshooting, database work. Making $3,200 a month instead of $8,500 at Nike. But it was work he was proud of. Therapy with Dr. Briggs was helping him understand why he felt entitled to my money. He was learning that love was a gift, not a debt. He was sponsoring someone now. Ryan, 28 days sober. Jim said the best way to stay sober was to help someone else do the same. You don't have to reply. I just wanted you to know. Michael. I read it in my office. Outside November, rain drummed against the window. Portland gray, heavy and persistent. I hit reply. Typed 3 words. Proud of you. Sent. November 8th. Another email from Michael. Subject line, it's official. Today he officially changed his name. The court approved it. He was still Michael James Morrison because I gave him that name, and he wanted to be worthy of keeping it. It felt like a promise. To himself. To me. He knew he broke the trust that came with that name. He knew he disgraced it. But he'd spend the rest of his life trying to live up to it. Thank you for giving it to me in the first place. Michael, I sat at my desk for a long time. The rain had stopped. The sky was pale and washed out. I typed a reply. Good. Make it mean something. Sent. Mid-November. Tom called on a Saturday afternoon. I was in the garage organizing tools. How are you holding up? Tom asked. Fine. Now Sarah and Michael ask about you every time I talk to them, which isn't often, maybe once a week. They never push, never ask me to pressure you. They just want to know if you're okay. I didn't say anything. They're respecting your boundaries, David. That's what you asked for. I know. So Noj, are you softening even a little? I thought about Sarah's emails, the nursery, the parenting classes, the volunteer work, Michael's sobriety, his name change, the AA meetings, the sponsor, the freelance work he was proud of. Maybe, I said. A little. Tom was quiet. Then, that's good. That's progress. Yeah, I hung up. Went back to organizing. Found a box labeled Sarah, Little League Trophies 2008 to 2011. I opened it. Looked at the small, gold-painted figures, girls with bats, girls throwing, girls running. I'd coached that team. Spent Saturday mornings at Laurelhurst Park teaching them how to bunt, how to slide, how to shake hands after every game. I closed the box, set it back on the shelf. Not yet, but maybe. November 20th, 11:35 p.m. My phone rang. I was in bed half asleep reading a Tom Clancy novel I'd started 3 times and never finished. Marcus's name on the screen, I answered. Marcus, Mr. Morrison, I'm sorry to call so late. Sarah's in labor. She's at Legacy Emmanuel. 36 weeks, a little early, but the doctors say the baby's strong. I sat up. Is she okay? Yeah, she's okay. She's scared, but she's okay. He paused. She's asking for you. I didn't speak. I told her I'd call. But I also told her you might say no, and that's completely okay. This is your choice. No pressure. I just wanted you to know. I looked at the clock. 11:35 p.m. I thought about Sarah, 28 years old, 6 months of therapy, 6 months of emails, 6 months of proving she was serious. I thought about the baby, my grandchild biologically, or not being born 4 weeks early, Sarah scared, asking for me. Which floor, I asked. 4th. Labor and delivery. Room 412. I'll be there. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. I hung up. Sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the dark window, the rain starting again outside. I stood, got dressed, jeans, sweatshirt, jacket, walked downstairs. In the living room on the mantel, there was a photograph I'd turned face down in April. Sarah, 24 years old, nursing school graduation, wearing her white coat, smiling. I'd paid for that degree, $45,000. I'd sat in the audience and clapped when they called her name. I walked to the mantel, picked up the frame, turned it upright. Sarah smiling. My daughter. Not my daughter. Both. Neither. I didn't know anymore. I set the frame back on the mantel upright now and picked up my car keys. The drive to Legacy Emmanuel took 22 minutes. The roads were empty, slick with rain. The hospital parking garage was quiet, fluorescent lit, echoing. I walked through the sliding doors into the lobby. Took the elevator to the 4th floor. Labor and delivery. Room 412. I stood outside the door for a moment. Took a breath. Then I knocked. I walked through the sliding glass doors of Legacy Emmanuel Medical Center at 11:47 p.m. on November 20th. The same hospital where the lies had started 38 years ago. The same hospital where Brian Caldwell had delivered Sarah and Michael, falsifying their birth certificates, listing me as father, when he knew when they all knew it wasn't true. The irony wasn't lost on me. I took the elevator to the 4th floor. Labor and delivery. The hallway was quiet, fluorescent bright, the air heavy with antiseptic and something sweeter, flowers maybe, or newborn skin. I found Marcus in the waiting room. He stood when he saw me, surprise and relief crossing his face. Mr. Morrison, you came? Yeah. He stepped forward and hugged me quick, tight, saying more than words. When he pulled back, his eyes were red. Thank you, he said. Sarah didn't think you'd come. How is she? In the delivery room. The baby's heart rate dropped about an hour ago. They're monitoring closely. 36 weeks is early, but the doctors say the baby's strong. He rubbed his face. Sarah's terrified. About the baby. About everything. The baby, yes. But also, she's scared you'll never forgive her. I nodded, sat in one of the waiting room chairs, blue vinyl worn at the armrests. Marcus sat beside me. We waited. At 1:18 a.m., a nurse appeared. Young scrubs patterned with cartoon bears, a tired smile on her face. Marcus. It's a girl. 5 pounds 4 ounces. She's healthy. Mom's doing great. Marcus exhaled, shoulders dropping. He covered his face with his hands, then looked at me. A girl. Congratulations, I said. The nurse glanced at me. Are you family? Marcus answered before I could. Yes. He's Sarah's father. The nurse smiled. You can both come back. Room 418. The door was half open. Marcus went in first. I followed slower, uncertain. Sarah was propped up in the hospital bed, hair damp with sweat, face pale and exhausted. She held a small bundle wrapped in a pink and white striped blanket. When she saw me standing in the doorway, her eyes filled with tears. Dad, she whispered. You came. I stepped closer, looked down at the baby in her arms. Emma rose. 5 pounds 4 ounces. A tiny face, red and wrinkled eyes, closed mouth slightly open. Dark hair, a lot of it. Marcus's nose. Sarah's chin. I felt something I hadn't expected. Not joy, not exactly. But something softer than the anger I'd carried for 8 months. Something like tenderness. She's beautiful, Sarah, I said. Sarah's face crumpled. She started crying hard, silent sobs that shook her shoulders. Marcus moved to her side, but she looked at me. I don't expect you to be a grandfather, she said, voice breaking. I don't expect anything. But thank you. Thank you for being here. I surprised myself. I reached out and gently touched the baby's hand, so small fingers curled into a fist skin, impossibly soft. What's her name? Emma Rose. Emma Rose Torres. Marcus's last name. Not mine. Not Brian's. That felt right. It's a good name, I said. I stayed for 20 minutes. Mostly I just stood there watching Emma sleep. Sarah didn't talk much, too exhausted, too emotional. Marcus thanked me twice. Before I left, I looked at Sarah. Get some rest. Take care of her. I will, Sarah whispered. I promise. I nodded. Walked out of the room, down the hallway, back to the elevator. The parking garage was cold, empty, echoing. I sat in my truck for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the concrete wall. Then I called Tom. He answered on the second ring. David, what happened? I saw the baby. And I closed my eyes. She's beautiful. 5 pounds 4 ounces, healthy. Sarah named her Emma Rose. Tom waited. I don't know what happens next, I said. I don't know if I can forgive Sarah or Michael. I don't know if we'll ever have a real relationship again. But when I looked at that baby, I didn't feel angry. I felt sad. Sad for all the time we lost, for the lies, for the fact that Sarah's daughter will grow up in a family that's broken because of choices her mother made. I opened my eyes. But I didn't feel empty. I felt something. Tom was quiet for a long time. Then, that's healing, brother. You're starting to heal. Maybe. Not maybe. You drove to the hospital at midnight because your daughter and, yeah, David, she's still your daughter, asked for you. You held that baby's hand. You told Sarah she's beautiful. That's not anger. That's healing. I didn't argue. Go home, Tom said. Get some sleep. Okay. David, I'm proud of you. I ended the call. Started the truck. Drove out of the parking garage into the cold November night. The streets were empty. Portland at 2:30 in the morning, quiet, wet, the streetlights reflecting off the slick pavement. I drove through downtown, past the Willamette River, past the dark storefronts and closed cafes out toward Cedar Hills. By the time I reached home, The sky was starting to lighten deep blue, fading to gray, the first hint of dawn. I parked in the driveway, sat for a moment looking at the house. Too big, too quiet. But mine. I thought about Emma Rose. 5 pounds, 4 ounces. A tiny hand wrapped around my finger. Sarah crying, Marcus holding her. I thought about the last 8 months. The blood test. The DNA results. The confrontations. The divorce. Brian's suicide attempt. The apology letters. Michael's sobriety. Sarah's volunteer work. And now this. A baby. A granddaughter. Biologically Brian Caldwell's grandchild. But also maybe mine. I didn't have answers. I didn't know what forgiveness looked like. I didn't know if I'd ever trust Sarah or Michael again. But for the first time in 8 months, I didn't feel empty. I felt something. Maybe it was hope. I got out of the truck, walked to the front door, unlocked it, and went inside. The house was dark and silent. I didn't turn on the lights. I just stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to the quiet. Then I went upstairs, lay down on the bed, fully clothed, and closed my eyes. The sun rose over Portland. Golden light filtered through the curtains. I heard birds outside the window singing the way they always did at dawn, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Michael called at 1:15 p.m. on Thanksgiving, while I was at Tom's house in Gresham. His voice was steady but tentative when he asked if he could visit tomorrow with something to show me. I agreed to meet at 2 p.m. at my Cedar Hills home. He arrived at 1:58 p.m. looking transformed. He'd gained weight, shaved, and his eyes held a clarity I hadn't seen in years. He wore a flannel shirt and work boots carrying a manila envelope. This was his first time inside the house since April 15th, the day I'd thrown him out. We sat in the living room, and he set the envelope on the coffee table between us. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness," he said quietly. "I just need you to see this." He pulled out 4 items, each one deliberate and measured. The first was an 18-month sobriety plan, 12 pages detailing daily AA meetings, twice weekly therapy with Dr. Briggs' career goals for freelance work, and comprehensive relapse prevention strategies. It wasn't a promise. It was a blueprint. The second item was a notarized affidavit waiving all legal claims to my estate. His signature sat above a blue embossed seal. "I don't want your money," he explained. "I want your respect." Third came 8 pages of handwritten timeline, 47 lies he'd told me between 2013 and 2025 each, with dates, contexts, and explanations. I read the first entry about October 2013, when he was 13, and had just learned Brian was his biological father. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Every birthday dinner, every Christmas morning, every casual conversation, all documented with brutal honesty. The fourth item made my breath catch, a cashier's check for $8,400. He'd calculated every gift, every dinner, every cash card I'd given him since learning the truth about his paternity. 4 months of freelance work had gone into this symbolic restitution. "I can't accept this," I said. "You don't have to cash it," he replied. "But I need you to have it." He stood to leave, met my eyes at the door, and thanked me for letting him in. I watched his car disappear down the street, then called Tom to process what had just happened. That night, I filed the envelope in my desk drawer alongside Sarah's apology letter, Emma's hospital photo, and the DNA reports. I wasn't ready to call them family again, but I also wasn't ready to call them strangers. By late December, 9 months after the blood test, the landscape of my life had shifted completely. Jennifer's divorce was finalized in September. She'd moved to Eugene with $145,000 and a public record of her 38-year affair. We hadn't spoken since May. Brian had surrendered his medical license, paid Diane $7.5 million, and moved to Arizona. His September letter through his attorney went unanswered in my files. Sarah and I had established a cautious peace. Emma was 5 weeks old now, healthy and beautiful. We'd met for coffee on December 15th, and I'd held my granddaughter for 10 minutes. The emotions were complex: sadness, tenderness, uncertainty. I'd added a $100,000 education trust for Emma to my will in November with Tom as trustee. She's innocent in this. She deserves a future. Sarah and Michael remained excluded from the main estate. Michael had reached 6 months of sobriety on December 3rd. When he sent me a photo of his gold AA chip, I replied with 3 words that felt monumental: proud of you. It was the first direct positive affirmation I'd given him since March. His freelance income had stabilized at $3,800 monthly. His Christmas card, the first since 2013, carried a simple message about becoming someone I'd be proud to know. I sent one back with equal brevity. Tom remained my anchor, the family I'd chosen. Christmas at his house had been simple and genuine: ham cards, an old movie. I'd given him a framed photo from 1983 of us fishing by the creek. Thompson HVAC was having its best year ever, $2.8 million in revenue, 52 employees. I joined a support group for betrayed spouses in October and started woodworking in November. The work was methodical and satisfying. I was building a bookshelf for Tom's office, taking my time with each cut and joint. I'd lost 15 pounds since March. Eating better, sleeping better, running 3 mornings a week. I was healing. On December 28th, Tom and I sat on his back porch under a cold, star-scattered sky. He handed me a beer and toasted surviving 2025. "Any regrets?" he asked. "Only that I didn't see the truth sooner," I said. "But I spent 38 years living in a lie. I won't spend another day doing that." He asked if I'd ever really forgive Sarah and Michael. I looked out at the dark yard and considered the question carefully. Forgiveness isn't something you decide once. It's something you choose every day. Right now, I'm choosing to let them earn it. That's the best I can do. We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Driving home past Waterfront Park, where I'd collapsed in April and Tom had told me to fight, I realized something profound. I hadn't lost a family this year. I'd lost a lie. In its place, I was building something real, slower and smaller, but honest. Inside my quiet hallway, I looked at the photos on the mantle: Sarah's nursing graduation, Michael's college commencement, Emma sleeping in her hospital bassinet. I was 63 years old, AB negative blood type, betrayed and broken, but not destroyed. Upstairs in bed, I felt something close to peace for the first time in 9 months. That was enough. If I could speak to you, whoever's reading this family story, I'd say don't live like I did. Don't spend 38 years trusting blindly without asking hard questions. I loved, deeply, provided faithfully, and believed completely. But I never verified. I never challenged the inconsistencies. And that blind trust cost me decades of truth. This family story taught me that love without honesty is just a beautiful lie. Biology doesn't make a father, presence does. But betrayal, even wrapped in years of sacrifice, leaves scars that time alone can't heal. Dad revenge isn't about cruelty. It's about reclaiming your dignity when the people you trusted most conspire to erase you. My dad revenge wasn't violent. It was legal, financial, and emotionally necessary. I demanded accountability. I refused to be a victim in my own life. Yet revenge alone doesn't bring peace. Forgiveness. True forgiveness isn't a single decision. It's a daily choice to let go of bitterness and allow people to earn back what they destroyed. Sarah and Michael are trying. I'm watching. That's the most honest thing I can offer. Here's my advice. Trust, but verify. Love fiercely, but guard your heart. If betrayal comes, and sometimes it does, don't let it define you. Fight for your truth. Rebuild on solid ground. And when the dust settles, ask God for the strength to forgive what you cannot forget, because carrying hatred only destroys the carrier. This family story isn't over. It's just different now. Smaller, quieter, but real. And real, I've learned, is the only foundation worth building on. Thank you for walking this journey with me to the very end. I'd love to hear your perspective. What would you do if you found yourself in my situation, facing decades of deception from those you loved most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights matter to me. If this narrative resonated with you, consider subscribing so you won't miss future stories that explore the complexity of trust, betrayal, and healing. A gentle reminder: while inspired by real-world themes of family stories and the painful reality of dad revenge when trust is shattered, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this content doesn't align with your preferences, feel free to explore other videos that might suit you better, 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 that might suit you better,